Welcome, everyone. My name is Christine Santos. I'm the founder of Epic Generation. Epic Generation is a children's TV show, but also a training academy for public speaking, media literacy, growth mindset, and now artificial intelligence. So I'm very, very excited to bring this program here in Canada and have partnered with AI Club all the way from the Silicon Valley, and we have our expert here today. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background. Why am I bringing AI Club here? And in my own personal search for STEM program for my kids, they're not really so much into robotics or any of that sort. They're more on the arts. So I was looking for a way to kind of bridge that and look for something that they can easily relate to. And since AI is all around us and we're interacting with it more than we probably realize, I thought this is a very easy way to get into that. And knowing that AI is transforming our world, impacting our future jobs, I thought this is a really great program for kids to get ahead. And with Epic Generation bringing that in here, we are complementing the AI program with media training, but will help you be able to present your project in a very effective way. I am very pleased to introduce the founder of AI Club. She's a world-renowned AI expert. She's got so many patents. She writes for Forbes. Dr. Nisha Talagala, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Christine, for inviting us. And we're very excited to speak with all of you guys today. Let me tell you a little bit about AI Club. We are, professionals who know a great deal about both software and artificial intelligence. And I will tell you a bit more later. And we're also parents. And we have created education programs for students for K-12 and beyond. We start at 4th grade, and we have programs all the way through high school, as well as some programs for post-high school individuals as well. All of the leading teachers and leaders of AI Club have computer science or AI PhDs. We also have a significant amount of experience building companies in the Silicon Valley. So we know a great deal about both the ideas and the concepts and the theory, but also about how to put it into practice. We've been doing this for quite some time now. We have proven success with students, parents, and educators, and helping these folks all really understand this really powerful emerging technology and how to think about it in their daily lives, as well as in things that they would like to do. We've had hundreds of AI projects built by K through 12 students. We'll be showing a demonstration of one of those later today. We've also had multiple competition wins. These are both the STEM field as well as overall, social good as well as entrepreneurial kinds of fields. And these have been done by our students. Because artificial intelligence is so fascinating and students are able to really apply it very, very quickly to solve problems they see around them, what we found is that pretty much all of our students want to feel like they understand AI better after they've taken these workshops. Their interest in AI has increased. Their interest in programming has increased because they can actually see how they can connect the programming that they do to solving problems they see around them. And that's an incredible motivation. Nearly half of them have increased their interest in math, because you can do a lot of AI without knowing a great deal of math, which is part of the reason why K-12 students can do it. But these students very quickly realized that if they knew a little bit more math, their understanding of what they could do would grow so much. So they're interested in learning more of the math. Here are some of the competition wins that we've had this year. Technovation AI Challenge is actually a worldwide challenge for teams to use artificial intelligence for problems in their communities. AI Club students won this challenge in both basically levels for North America. Senior level won with a project called the Smart Waste Sorter, which we will show you later today. And the junior division won with a project called Comzilla, which is about reducing stress among students. We also have STEM competition wins. This particular one, for example, was actually focusing on breast cancer detection using artificial intelligence. So these give you an example of the kinds of things that kids can do. These are all, by the way, middle school to high school students. These are not college or any professionals. These are basically children like yourselves or your children, and they are motivated to solve these problems. We also provide programs, resources to families and parents, because part of navigating, this fascinating new technology is for you, the parents, to feel comfortable enough understanding it that you can talk about it with your kids. So we provide resources. These are some of the articles that we've provided. We provide webinars and such. We also have a massive project repository of projects actually done by other kids. So these are, for example, 6 of the projects that some of our children have done this year. You see that some of the younger children look at things like recommending Disney princesses. Some look at more scientific topics like predicting the battery life of your iPhone. Some look at social topics like the bias in news. Others look at, recent, topics like coronavirus and things like that. And so there's lots of variety in what children can work on, all with the artificial intelligence concepts that they have learned. All of our senior members of our team are PhDs. These are the schools that, we all studied at. Together, we have well over 100 United States patents. I personally have about 70. We have published very extensively in research. We have more than 100 refereed research publications. We chair research conferences. I myself an annual conference on production machine learning called OpML. We've, as I mentioned, we are also entrepreneurs, so we understand the practical applications of technology. These are 2 of the companies that, we have founded, been recognized by the United States government with National Science Foundation grants. And we have mentored students across the age groups. And that's a personal, desire of every member of the team. And that's part of the reason why we created AI Club, is to really be able to share this knowledge. I personally have a 12-year-old daughter, and my first experiences with teaching AI to kids was from teaching her. And so a lot of the things that I learned about what motivated her and what did not motivate her are some of the things that we rolled into this program. Now, let me get into a little bit about what artificial intelligence actually is. So at a high level, you can think of artificial intelligence as the way that computers, learn to do things that come very naturally to the human brain. So the human brain, without even thinking, can do all sorts of really amazing things. We can look at a room, recognize the images in it. We can understand when someone is speaking to us, even when they have an accent. We plan our day. We think about obstacles, we strategize, we predict the future correctly or wrongly. We play games, things like that. Many of these things come quite difficult to computers, and artificial intelligence is really an umbrella term for technologies where computers learn how to do these kinds of things and hopefully do them as well or better than humans. In some cases, actually better. So in real life, one of the reasons why kids should really learn AI is because they are using AI already, whether they really know it or not. If they have any kind of a digital assistant in their home or on their phone, if they speak to it to ask what time it is, maybe make an appointment, look up a topic, on the internet to get some research for a school project, all of that is AI. If they've got a weather prediction, if they have ever, seen anything about a self-driving car, or possibly, for example, been in a Tesla, which is, one of the most advanced cars these days with respect to artificial intelligence, these are all AIs in real life. This particular one is one that some people may not be fully aware of, but last year, the scientists working, I believe, at this point at Stanford and MIT created the first picture of a black hole that we have ever seen. That was actually created using AI. So AI was used to enhance the pictures that they got naturally from their telescopes. And the picture that they actually ended up creating, which was actually all over the news, was a combination of human work and AI work. As we already mentioned, AI is already a part of their lives, and it will become a fundamental part of their lives moving forward. Companies are already recognizing that they anticipate a majority of future jobs to have some element of AI. And not just future engineering jobs. This is also law, medicine, public policy. All of those have an AI role in them. So being aware of it is definitely helpful for them to become good at whatever they choose to do. Currently, they can use AI to build games, application chatbots, solve problems in their communities, and they can also apply AI to things like STEM fields, like biology and medicine and things like that, and and do unique work in those areas. Now, how can kids learn AI? In the past, even as recently as, say 3 to 5 years ago, it was hard for kids, or for that matter, anybody, to learn AI, because the tools that were out there were, first of all, quite difficult to use, and you had to be quite an expert programmer to use them. And you also needed to know a great deal of math in order to use the tools. Also, AI lives on data, and data is how AIs learn, and data is hard to come by. So if, for example, if somebody told you that you had to get, I don't know, 300 data points for a topic and you had to get them yourself, that's actually quite difficult. That was the case in the past. Now, the approach that we have taken is that we have actually built both tools as well as data sets. So the tools that we have built are usable on a web browser like Chrome. So kids don't have to install anything on a computer. They don't have to buy any hardware, or anything like that. They just simply log in to a website using their existing computer, tablet, whatever they like, and then they can build AIs. And the tooling that we've built is progressive. So a child can build and use an artificial intelligence without engaging any math or any programming. They can learn the fundamentals, but they can also expand their abilities and their learning as their math knowledge and their programming knowledge grows. So for example, when we teach a high school class, we basically teach them concepts that are using some of the things that they have learned in at least 8th grade algebra, for example. Whereas when we teach a 6th grader, they build AIs and they use them and they understand some of the concepts intuitively, but they don't get into the math that they have not learned yet. Similarly, depending on how much coding that they do, they can actually add code to their AI and build more sophisticated things, or they can choose to build AIs directly on the internet if their coding is still, in its early stages. From a data set point of view, we have created a massive library of data sets that are kid friendly. Some of the data sets that are out there are not suitable for children. And so all of our data sets are basically have been curated by our team to be friendly, but at the same time provide a very rich set of information that students can build some very advanced projects. So at this stage, we have more than 250 data sets that children can start off with. We also provide them guidance on how they can get additional information, for example, from the Centers of Disease Control, websites. If they're writing some, building an AI about helping kids, they can get it from parenting websites and stuff like that. So as I mentioned, earlier it was quite hard, but now it is not. And part of this is because of the approach that we've taken, as well as the tools that we've built that basically give students a chance to experience the AI, build their own, teach an AI concepts that they want the AI to learn, understand how AIs behave, and then they can progressively deeper depending on their level of education in terms of what grade they're in, and also how much coding that they know or want to know. So that's one of the advantages of our approach. Our programs, we start at a 4th grade. So you can start wherever you're at. Our introductory programs don't assume that you know anything about AI, so it's okay to not know anything. You can start. But obviously our more high school and other programs get deeper much faster and go into more depth because the students have the mathematics knowledge that they can use to appreciate some of the more advanced concepts. We make recommendations, in terms of what class to start on, depending on what your student already knows. But we also have classes for different grades. We have a progressive curriculum. In middle school alone, we have at this point about 9 different classes, or 9 or 10 classes that students can take in a sequence. And we have similar sequences for high school and others. And what they do is that they enable you to learn more and more details, grow your skills, do more sophisticated projects, combine them with code, things like that. And our competition wins are typically students who have taken 2 or 3 of our classes, and that has given them the depth that they need to build some of those projects that we mentioned. You can also build your own portfolio of projects, which is good for students generally to be able to share with teachers, families, peers, and eventually college admissions on what have they built and how has it impacted the world. We are very project oriented. Every course has a project. Each project builds an AI to solve a problem. In the elementary courses, we provide problem templates and their students can customize. From middle school onwards, they can pick entirely their own project from their own choice. And then they go through the cycle of gathering, reputable data for that project, building the AI, understanding how well it works, improving it, and finally, in the last class, presenting it to their peers and to their families. This is one of the areas where, our partnership with Epic Generation is going to dramatically help the students improve not just their AI, but also their presentation skills so that they can build high quality presentations of the work that they've done. And project complexity varies with course. Introductory projects can be quite basic. Once you get to an advanced project, you are talking about something that is competition grade and sometimes publication grade in the high school arena. Just to give you guys a bit of a feel of a project, and this is the one that won the Technovation AI Challenge in North America, senior. This was done by a group of middle school children in Redwood Shores, which is a city in Northern California, near the Silicon Valley. And it was a range of children. You'll see them actually on the video. And what they basically discovered is that their local recycling center was not operating as efficiently or had many issues due to the fact that people put trash into the wrong trash bin. So they built an artificial intelligence to try to address this problem, and they did it, with mentoring from us based on classes that they've taken with us, as well as engagement from their parents.
The Recycle Squad.
As you can see with like our recycling, some people will sort or will throw some things in there that aren't supposed to be recycled, and those will be taken out.
A couple of items which you guys wish people would sort properly.
Oh, in my experience, it's definitely plastic bags. So it's like plastic bags or any flimsy plastic. So it would be like plastic wrap, like for food and stuff, or just like packaging from things that you buy. Those often end up in our recycling, and it would help us a lot more if we didn't get it in there and that it would just go into the garbage, because they often get stuck in a lot of our machines.
A battery was once sorted in recycling, which caused a fire in the facility. Recology was closed down for over 4 months.
We decided to invent a solution to this recycle contamination problem. Here is how it works.
When someone tries to throw away flimsy plastic into a recycling bin, our smart waste sorter triggers a buzzer alerting them.
This is a motion sensor that detects when someone tries to throw trash and triggers the camera to take a picture. The picture captured by the camera is sent to the AI service that processes it and sends a response telling us if this piece of garbage belongs to recycle. We created our AI service on a tool called Navigator. This is a free tool you can find on aiclub.world. We uploaded 500 sample images of garbage that we all collected with cameras on our phone and some from Google as well, and used that to train a deep neural network that can classify images containing different types of garbage. A sample image captured by the camera looks like this, which then goes to the AI service, and then that makes a prediction of what type of garbage this is. In this case, you can see that it predicted it to be a battery. In this case, you can see that it predicted it to be flimsy plastic.
So I think this was 5th grade to about 8th grade. The reason that they were in the senior division is because it's judged by the oldest child, and the oldest child was 12 or so at the time.
And were they all in the same level of AI by the time that they were doing this?
So it was led by the more, senior students, but it was really nice that the younger students were also, able to get engaged.
And that's a perfect example of the solving a community problem, which is what you were talking about, earlier, like really having real life problems that even children can try to solve. So if they have an idea that can be applied to their community, it could be the businesses. This is a great portfolio for even a high school student who's trying to apply for a job, because that's, that really shows companies what capabilities the children have and what ideas they have that they can actually implement a solution.
And so I think one of the things that we have found to be very, very helpful about teaching AI is that sometimes, topics like programming and math can seem a little abstract to children. If you're genuinely excited about things, then that's okay, but it's kind of hard to use math to solve a problem in front of you, usually. And one of the things that is really wonderful about AI is that you can actually connect it very, very tangibly to a problem that you care about, that's right in front of you, that you can speak to with people in your family, your community, and you can bring in as much math or AI or programming as you feel. So this solution, for example, these kids have presented it back to the recycling center. They've presented it to some of the local companies around here, and they've gotten mentorship and so forth with people genuinely saying, wow, you solved a real problem. Let me tell you a bit more about how you can make it better. So it creates a level of engagement that just kind of, makes them really proud of what they've accomplished.
That's great. So I think we can segue now into the next one where you're talking about more opportunities on AI.
We have a number of students who are doing various kinds of, medical and STEM and biology projects. And so they range from, things like, doing breast cancer, detecting breast cancer. We had a student recently who won a very prestigious award by doing research on diabetic retinopathy. A lot of students have studied COVID because it's so much on top of mind right now. Lots and lots of science projects. A great community project that a student did recently was helping an AI detect sign language. So if you have, for example, a colleague or a friend who knows sign language and you don't know it, one thing you can do is you can basically teach an AI to recognize sign language so that you have that as an assistant. Another community project that a student did was helping the blind understand coins. So she has a grandfather who is, sight impaired, and one thing she noticed was that her grandfather couldn't tell the difference between coins that were roughly about the same size. And so she taught an AI to help him basically figure out which coin he was holding in his hand. We have had many students, teach AIs to play games, everything from tic-tac-toe to, games like Flappy Bird and Snake and Tetris and things like that. AIs can also be used to create really cool music. There's lots and lots of projects involving robots, drones, climate conservation. So we had have a student, for example, who has been teaching an AI to detect disease in tomato plants. So by looking at pictures of tomato leaves, it can detect whether or not the tomato crop is, getting diseased and what kind of disease it is. And his ultimate goal is to put that AI into a drone that he has so that the drone can kind of fly over the crops and take pictures and automatically figure out if the crops are healthy.
What we have here is we're starting with the high school students, so the high school level students, on October 8th. Okay, and that will be every Thursday, 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. until November 12th.
Yes, they build their first AI on their very first day, and that gives them a very good understanding of how to do it. And then over the 6-week period, they create an idea that they want. We help them curate their idea. They build upon it, and on the last day, they're able to give a really nice presentation of their own custom AI that they built from scratch.
Perfect. And then the nice thing is that we're doing a bonus, a media class training, which is, this is optional to have that extra knowledge of how to present effectively. So maybe build a story, just like what you've seen, and you do it in a very engaging way so that your audience will be able to appreciate the project that you've done. So this is a great way of learning an extra skill in terms of presenting it using media as a tool. And this is also great for your portfolio. It's going to stand out even more because there's a story that would be engaging for them. And the middle school will be starting November 16, and we're also going to have a media training on the side to help you prepare for that. This is only for $200 Canadian all in. It's a back to school offer. This is for our first batch of students that are trying out the program here in Canada this year. Right. So if you would like to go ahead and reserve your spot, you can just go to epicgeneration.ca/AI for students that have been doing maybe robotics and other STEM programs. Do you find, Dr. Talagala, that maybe they're on more on the advanced level and they could go with an older group possibly?
We've had a number of younger students join our senior classes, partly because they've been programming for some time. They've done a bunch of work with robotics. Sometimes they're quite advanced in STEM and such, and so they're able to sort of organize concepts, things like that, at a level where they will be able to keep up with the high school class. So we've done that. We've also had situations where if parents feel that they think that child can, the student can handle the advanced class, but they're not quite sure, we start them off in the advanced class, we monitor them, and then we make a recommendation as to whether they should continue or whether they should move to the middle school class. So we've done both.
Would you be able to tell what is the landscape of AI in the Silicon Valley? How is it being addressed? Is it a big thing right now going into AI for the high schoolers? Because here in Canada, they have just introduced the new that coding and programming will be introduced in the math curriculum.
So what we have found is that some areas of the Silicon Valley, the students tend to be more advanced. with respect to AI. And part of it is, I think, because, the parents in Silicon Valley, right? They typically work in technology jobs, and therefore, if they're not actively working in the area, they're quite aware of peers who are working in the area, so they know that it's coming. What we have found is, for example, at the very heart of the Silicon Valley, like San Jose, if you look at, one good barometer is the science fair. So basically, the United States has regional science fairs that roll up to national science fairs. And if you look at the regional science fair that occurs in the heart of the Silicon Valley, pretty much at these last year, I would say 30 to 40% of the winning entries, by high school students used artificial intelligence. So that's an indicator of the way that it's rolling out. Artificial intelligence is starting to be rolled out in some of the more advanced schools, but its presence in schools is still not the case. It's typically present in after school, and kind of private programs. So yeah, the awareness is much greater. However, we are seeing, awareness growing in other areas as well. So for example, we work with partner educators in India, and the interest level and focus is increasing so rapidly among high school students there on artificial intelligence, because they see it as a critical skill for their academic future.
How is the learning on AI from this program can be applied at school?
It's applied typically in the arenas of STEM projects and programming hackathons. So STEM projects, science projects, physics, and so forth, the students have taken their AI learnings and applied it to science projects that they are doing collaboratively with their school. So that's one case. So for example, I mentioned that there was a student who's doing diabetic retinopathy. That was actually a school project, a school science project. And she brought her AI knowledge into that. Programming and AI have a very natural combination. So if you want to build websites, for example, or games, you can create an AI component into that. And so students who are doing programming, exercises either in school or as part of, school-sponsored hackathons and such, also bring those in.
How is AI really different from robotics, coding, and any other programming tools that are out there?
The way to really think about it is that robotics involves getting a physical device to do certain things, and AI involves getting a computer program to do things that the human brain does. So one of the examples that I use is that, say you wanted to build a robot that you're going to instruct this robot to go to the kitchen and get you coffee. Okay. Now, the part of that exercise that is AI is, I'm speaking to the robot. I'm going to say, robot, get me coffee. The robot's computer program has to understand my voice, has to understand that I said a sentence, what that sentence means. I'm asking for coffee. I'm not asking for the time of day. I'm not asking you to take out the trash, I'm asking for coffee. All of that happens in a computer program somewhere, and all of that is AI. Once the robot computer program has figured out that I want coffee, then it needs to know where the kitchen is, right? And mapping a path from wherever it is to the kitchen, if it involves some intelligence like getting, not running into a wall or stuff like that, that could be AI. But the actual mechanics of robot moving its wheels, or its legs, depending on what it's got, rolling over to the kitchen, reaching out, picking up a cup without breaking the cup, that stuff is physics. And programming physics into a robot is robotics. There's no artificial intelligence, that you need to know how not to break a cup. You have to think about the weight of the cup, the pressure you're applying on it, things like that. And that stuff is robotics. So the way to think about it is the physics of moving things like robots is kind of classic robotics. Anything where you think it's thinking, planning, strategizing, understanding, that is AI. This is a common question for parents. So if you go to our website, and an article that we've written that says Robotics and AI, a guide for parents. And what it does is it shows what common robotics is, common AI, the kinds of competitions you can do with robotics, kinds of competitions you can do with AI, kinds of things you can do when you combine them, things like that.
So you being in the industry, in the AI industry, how fast is it really progressing for the AI? Because this is fairly new, right? And are you seeing trends and the projection for AI to quote unquote overtake the world?
It's incredibly fast. the development of artificial intelligence in the last 3 years or last 5 years has been amazing. And what's happening is that it is entering pretty much every aspect of the industry. So, for example, there are now legal companies that are using AI to generate, to evaluate patents, and things like that. It's all over the medical space for things like, analyzing images, x-rays, brain scans. It's being used by human resources companies to evaluate resumes. People are using them every day, in everything from digital assistants to product recommendations to, GPS systems. And so it's basically rapidly permeating every aspect of our lives. And it's happening at amazingly fast rates. One of the things that, by the way, makes this the case with AI is that the mechanisms that enable the spread of AI in the technology world are very unusual. So what happens is that when a new type of AI is built, it's instantly advertised in places like Twitter. And very, very quickly, a large number of people start using it. So this is not the case where I did a research, I published it in a paper, 2 years later, somebody read it, 3 years later, they tried to build it. So one thing that we have noticed is that when a new technology comes out in AI, the time that it takes before a company tries to build it is like 12 months. So because of that, it's moving forward super rapidly, which is also, the projections in the United States are that, companies are basically, they're doing what's called upskilling. Now they feel that millions and millions of jobs will need to be upskilled for AI in the next decade. And part of it is that as AI takes over common tasks, you don't remove the human. You just make the human smarter about the AI that's working with them, so that they add even more value by interacting well with the AI. So it's not like, AI comes in, human goes away. It's AI comes in, human gets reskilled so that they become good at managing the AI. And so because of that, the skill is really important because you will be working with an AI in your next job. It's really that if you understand it, you bring tremendous value to your employer.
That's really an excellent point because I think that's a misconception, right? People are scared of AI because, oh, they're going to take over our jobs, but they're not seeing the other side we're in. It just means you have to be able to be, smarter, be able to harness, the tools that are there and be able to program it. Having that knowledge of how AI works is so critical to your job because you can make more enhancements, more improvements, because you know the scope of what AI can do.
The media kind of hypes this perception that AI is all intelligent and that it's taking over the jobs. That's not the reality. The reality is that AIs are actually good. AIs are good because of the humans that put the effort into training them. And one of the things that we do in our classes, and one of the reasons why we have them build an AI on the first day, is to remove this misconception. So in the first day, they build an AI, and one of the things we ask them is, tell me what it's not good at. And then let's try to teach it. And so what we try to help them understand is that this is actually a symbiotic relationship. And the greatest value is not to fight with the AI for simple things. It's to show that, because human intelligence is still way, way superior. And if you can help an AI be more productive, your value as a human in that partnership to your employer is just tremendous.
Now we get into the ethics and the values. But I like what you said about good AI because it's really how people program it.
So, I can maybe make a general statement. So there is a notion among the industry of, you can Google for terms like AI trust and AI bias. And what they really are implying is that the more that artificial intelligence seeps into our community and starts making decisions that affect our lives, anything from benign decisions like what books to recommend and to serious decisions like what your credit card interest rate is, and things like that, the more that it becomes important that humans be able to feel comfortable and trust that these decisions are fair. And that's a complicated concept because no two humans define fairness, the same way. So this is not an abstract thing that you can build in. It's a human discussion. The AI may be in the middle of it, but the AI is not causing these issues. These are human to human issues. And so one of the things that, in our advanced and high school classes, we help students appreciate is what does trust mean? How do you feel like you trust an AI? Part of it is being able to understand how it works, because if it's a black box that says no credit card for you, credit card for him, you're not going to trust it, right? But if you understand what the program actually did, how it came to that decision, whether you agree with it or not, you at least know that, okay, I don't agree with it, but I know how it works, so I can fix it. So part of it is helping students sort of understand that, and you're absolutely right, which is part of the reason why this age, this age group and this generation really needs to understand this stuff is because they should shape how it interacts with the world, because these are not mathematics. So for example, you'll see lots of articles that say AI biased against somebody. AI is a computer program. It does not have judgment. It biased because something in the data told it that that decision was the right thing to do. And who generated the data? The humans did. So there's many cases where humans, if they don't understand the way they're teaching the AI, can pass along biases that they may not even realize that they're passing along. And it's not malicious a good chunk of the time. It's simply a lack of awareness of how it works. So these are some of the things that, building a good AI really requires a lot of work on the part of the human, because the AI is like a child. It will learn whatever you taught it. It has no independent judgment. It doesn't come back and say, no, I don't think that's right. And so the human responsibility is very high. And this is one of the reasons why the students can feel really empowered, that what they do will actually affect how this fledgling technology behaves.
This is a very insightful session, understanding how AI works, what we teach AI that does what it is doing right now. And it's moving at a very rapid pace. And so if you want to give your kids that edge in this very competitive world right now, this is it. I'm going to end with Mark Cuban had said, if you don't know AI, you'll be a dinosaur in 3 years. He said something to that effect, because that's how fast everything is moving. Everyone just contact us if you have questions, and go to epicgeneration.ca/AI to register for our upcoming classes. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.